You got... Hello, my wondrous friends. I'm here with a review impressions of Monster Hunter Stories 2 on the Nintendo Switch. What's a review impressions? I suppose it's been a while since I've done one. It's not just an impressions video, because when I hear impressions, I think like, you know, I played the demo, played it a little. No, I've actually played a substantial amount of the game, but I have not quite finished it all the way yet, so it's not quite a review, and thus, review impressions. It's not clever, it's pretty awkward, but I'm doing it anyway, because I don't know what else to call it. Many thanks to Capcom for the review copy. I very much appreciated it, and they even sent over a collector's edition of the game. Look at this. This is me opening it up and looking at all the stuff inside. It's super cool. Oh my gosh, the super awesome Razewing Ratha amiibo. I love it. The little pin, you got stickers. It's super awesome. And of course, a copy of Monster Hunter Stories 2 for the Nintendo Switch with the deluxe DLC stuff. I mean, I think this whole thing is worth it just for that amiibo alone. It's super cool, I love it. Just so you know, in this video, there's like nothing in the way of spoilers. Like I said, I'm decently far into the game, but I'm only showing you stuff from pretty early on. I mean, it's before the plot has even opened up all the way. It's just like the first two major areas of the game, so yeah, you're pretty safe to watch. Also, backstory, I did not play Monster Hunter Stories 1 on the 3DS. It did look really good, and I heard it was really good. I never got around to playing it, but I did play Monster Hunter Rise. That was my first Monster Hunter game, so I'm not super familiar with the world of Monster Hunter, but I at least have, you know, some familiarity with it. And I would say with this game, familiarity with the series as a whole is absolutely not required at all, and you don't even need to know anything about the first game whatsoever. It acts completely on its own. But I will say that being familiar with Monster Hunter somewhat has definitely increased my enjoyment of the experience. It's been fun going in and being familiar with some of the monsters, and you know, just like what going around, oh no, it's a T-Rex, oh we gotta watch out, like I know that that's dangerous, you know, like having that prior knowledge. It's fun, and it's a little bit like, oh that guy, I love that guy, he's here now. And then like lots of little concepts all over the place, even like the items and like generally how they work, and even the little symbols for the items are the same as they are in the other Monster Hunter games. So that familiarity definitely lifts up the experience, and a lot of the fun is just seeing how they basically took Monster Hunter and just converted it into a turn-based RPG. Like, I could not imagine a better turn-based RPG adaptation of the game that I already played in Monster Hunter Rise. It's pretty great. And obviously you're gonna see a lot of that in the combat, so let's talk about the combat. I love a good turn-based RPG. I'm not a big JRPG guy in general, but when I do like an RPG, I love turn-based combat. I don't play a lot of them. I always love the idea of doing it, so then when one comes my way and it clicks with me, I get into it. Especially when they give me mechanics that I've not experienced yet before in a turn-based RPG. I love seeing how just different people do it. And in this case, it's really interesting. You'll be in a party of 4 most of the time, and you mostly just control yourself. Your monster partner. They're called monsties. I hate that. As an aside, when a monster is your friend, it's called a monstie. I despise that word. But whatever. When your little monster friend, like you can kind of tell them what they should be doing, but if you just let them go, for the most part, they're going to attack by themselves. Your partner and their monster partner, they all attack by themselves. So you mostly control you. So then it comes down to adjusting your strategy to fit the situation. A lot of it comes down to this kind of rock, paper, scissors attack triangle. You've got power attacks, speed attacks, and technical attacks, and you've got to learn your enemy and guess what they're going to do. And this really matters whenever 2 people attack each other, they enter into a head-to-head. And that's when the rock, paper, scissors comes in. And that's when you have to know your enemy so that if you enter into a head-to-head, you are gonna, and whoever wins the head-to-head deals more damage, you lose it, you know, you take more damage, all that, you can imagine how it goes. Then you can always see what kind of attack your partners are going to make next, and you kind of base your attacks on that too. If you do the same type of attack as your monster partner, then you do an extra special little thing, and then you can switch out your monster based on what their average attack is, based on what monster you're doing, so there's some customizability there. Then in addition to the 3 types of attack, you've also got 3 types of weapons. You've got slash and pierce and blunt. Different weapon types are good against different monster parts on different monsters at different times, and so you kind of switch back back and forth there. There's even more of the strategy. And then this game's take on an MP system is basically the more you attack with your monster partner, your kinship meter goes up. You can use up points off of that meter to do special attacks, but then if you let it charge all the way up, then you can ride on your monster, and then you can do a big special kinship thing there. If you do a kinship attack at the same time as your other partner, then it's even bigger attack. Like, it's just like, there's all these things that line up and all of these different things to consider, and such a surprising amount of depth, considering, like I said, you're mainly only controlling your one character at any given time. And I gotta tell you, I am loving it. I love this combat system. It's super fun. The presentation, I'll talk more about the overall presentation later, but just like seeing all the attacks flying around. Some of these attacks are like big, just like giant world-destroying DBZ attacks. They're super amazing. The head-to-heads, even just the way that it's animated, is just that much more satisfying to win. The whole thing has like just enough depth and strategy to get me super hooked on it and feel super cool and empowering and everything, but it's not too complicated for an Arlo to understand, and that's always the most important thing with an RPG. And like, again, I love how it incorporates the overall Monster Hunter thing into it just so seamlessly. None of the Monster Hunter stuff feels tacked on. You could play this game and not even know that there were other Monster Hunter games that this was kind of referencing. Like, a lot of it comes down to having knowledge of the monster, of like coming up against a monster and just knowing what kinds of attacks that they tend to make so that you can respond to that. But then when they're low on health, they become enraged, and then they get a little bit more unpredictable, and they use attack patterns that you don't expect. Then you can attack specific parts of the body to break those parts and get extra items and deal extra damage. And again, like, different weapons have different weaknesses and strengths against different parts of the body. And so, like, having that knowledge, like, that's just like regular Monster Hunter, where the whole thing comes down to knowing the monster, knowing its attacks. That's the whole game. And this is the turn-based RPG equivalent of that whole system. I love it. It works so perfectly. It encapsulates Monster Hunter so perfectly in this genre. Then you got even more stuff carrying over from Monster Hunter. What's the other really awesome thing about Monster Hunter? It's collecting stuff and using it to make new stuff, to make yourself more powerful. Whole system here, you're out on the field, while you're running around, you're just collecting stuff constantly. I love it. It's so silly, but it's just so satisfying. There's stuff all over the place, so you always feel like you're getting something done. Monsters drop all sorts of parts, and then you go to the smithy, you can forge weapons, and there's a bunch of different weapon types. There aren't like as many as there are in the main Monster Hunter games, but there's still like a really good little spread of weapons with different strategies. And you can use your parts to forge them, you can use your parts to upgrade it. It's the whole thing. It's the whole Monster Hunter thing. And one really awesome thing about this is that it doesn't just mimic Monster Hunter in an RPG form, it also kind of scratches some itches that Monster Hunter Rise left me with. In Rise, I was a little disappointed that it's just like a hub world, and then you go out in a limited series of maps and you just go on missions. I kind of wanted it to be a more cohesive, connected, real world, and this is basically that. You've got a great number of towns, and like the towns are all really pretty and great, and they're full of NPCs, and there's stuff to do, and then you embark on this big, like, connected world with all just places to go and explore. The areas themselves aren't directly connected, you know, there's load zones and stuff like that, but it really doesn't matter. Within each place, there's so many places to go. You're just, you know, going over hills and into caves and just seeing what's out there, and it's super duper fun. There are items to collect, there are monsters to fight all over the place. And then here's a mechanic, this is the mechanic that made me fall in love with the game. I love the combat and all that stuff, but this right here, it's the icing on the cake. So you're out on the field and you find monster dens. These are like randomly generated, they pop up in different places, and within each one, it's basically like a little mini dungeon when you go inside, and inside they're also randomized. I mean, you know, pretty early on, you see the different patterns. They don't randomize that much, but they do. Different monsters, different stuff to pick up in each one, and then at the very end of every monster den, you're gonna find a monster nest, and that is where you find monster eggs. Sometimes you gotta fight a monster to get the egg, sometimes the monster is sleeping, and like you basically pull eggs out of the nest, and every time you pull it, there's a chance to get like a rare monster or a rare gene. Your little cat guy tells you whether or not you got a good egg, and so, but you never know exactly what's gonna, what the stats are inside. And if you want, you can keep cycling through and pulling out eggs, hoping to get a better one, but eventually you'll run out of eggs, or if you pull too many, the monster could wake up, or a monster could come back to its cave, so it's kind of this risk and reward fun. It's that loot boxy thing where you never know what you're gonna get, and that's the thing about monster dens in general, is it's something that you can always be doing, no matter what. If you just don't want to do the main story, just go out raiding monster dens, and the fact that you never know what's inside, you never know what items or what monsters to fight and what egg you'll get at the end, that's just so much fun. It's the mystery. It's that thing that just keeps you going. Just like, oh, one more. I'll just do one more den before I go to bed. Then, of course, you take your eggs back to the stables. You hatch the monsters. You get new monsters. You can have all these different ones and raise them up and train them. It's a little like Pokemon in that way, and have one in battle with you. And you can, oh gosh, that too. Oh, it's so good. When you're out exploring, different monsters have different abilities. Like just a bunch of them, you start out with one that can jump. So like you get on these platforms and you can jump over across little ledges, and so you can get items and stuff that way. There are ones that can swim and break rocks and climb walls and dig and just like all sorts of stuff. So the fun of getting powerful new monsters also comes with the fun of unlocking new abilities that help you explore. It's very, very satisfying, very fun. So we can talk about the story. There's really not much to talk about. If you've seen the story trailers, you get the general idea. You get this Rathalos egg, but everyone's like, this Rathalos is gonna be bad and destroy everything, but you want to raise a Rathalos. It's a whole thing. Don't really need to go into it here. One thing I like about the story is that it takes a really long time to unravel. Like, you have to play the game for quite a while before you even get the egg and before you even hatch the egg. The whole thing just kind of, I don't know, it unravels really slowly, and I think that that's fun. You can kind of strike out on your own adventure and learn everything and have all of these options and things to do, without it just completely funneling you in the direction that it needs you to go, just instantly, The characters, they're fine. It's very, it's standard stuff, really no standouts. Naviru is the funny little kitty guy, and he's your average little, like, sidekick, loves to eat donuts kind of guy, whatever. Voice acting is, I would say, mostly serviceable, and then every once in a while you get a stinker or two, but mostly serviceable, so not too many complaints there, and the cinematics are all fun and stuff. Real quick though, I have kind of an aside here, but like, okay, in the regular Monster Hunter games, there's this moral issues. You're monster hunters, oh, go out, go out into these monsters' natural habitats and just murder them. Just kill them up, what good? They don't deserve it at all. So you end up feeling kind of bad. And so right at the start of this game, it establishes that there is tension between monster hunters and your people, monster riders. They make friends with the monsters, kinship. Oh, I get it. Like that makes perfect sense. It's kind of addressing that issue. But it's not at all. These riders also just murder indiscriminately. They just if they happen to find a monster and I used my special kinship stone and I hatched it, and so now it's my friend. So this one is good. All the other ones though, no, kill them. Just kill them. Like, you get out in the field and it's just like, hey, what's that? A pack of like clearly completely peaceful, docile, herbivorous monsters? Just kill them. Let's kill them. Let's kill them now. It's just like really weird and contradictory, and yeah, it doesn't really solve the morality issue, does it? I mean, you go into a monster's den, you kill the monster, and you steal its egg. Like, come on. But anyway, let's wrap this up. Presentation is pretty darn good. There's a lot of really nice looking elements here, again, like the towns and the landscape. It is a little uneven. There are nicer elements and then there are cheaper elements. Battle looks really good. All the animations and everything looks super good in battle. Everything is really nice and slick. But yeah, out in the world, it's a little less even. There are cut corners here and there. It's pleasant, but it's not mind-blowing. Biggest issue is performance. The performance is really not great, mostly just in the frame rate department. The Switch is really struggling to make this work, and even if a frame rate is low, I'm usually better about it if it's at least consistent. But this one, like, if you're in a situation where there's not a lot going on, it can go up to 60 FPS, but that just ends up making it look even worse when you're wandering around an area and it's super choppy, way below 30 frames per second, maybe even 20. And yeah, It's disappointing. It doesn't really hurt the gameplay that much, but it is disappointing to see. And then another thing, the controls really aren't good. It's the sort of thing you get used to and it doesn't matter too much, but when you're out on the field, or like even your character or your monster, you're just running around, it's just really awkward. The controls are really super touchy. You know, like you have to tilt the stick a lot before your character will walk a little, and then there's a tiny walk window, and then it's burst into a sprint. So especially in a town, it just looks really weird. It's just uncomfortable, and it's not really responsive when you're trying to pick up items, so you kind of just like mash the A button a bunch to pick up the items. Again, not really a huge deal, but it is slightly disappointing. Overall, though, I love the heck out of this game. I am having an absolute blast with this game. This is really, really good. It's super big. Like, this is a game you're gonna spend a lot of hours on, especially with all the monster dens and side stuff to do, and you know, it's as much side stuff as you want. It's just big, it's epic, it's huge, it's fun, the combat's fun, everything about it's just really, really good. Like, I have absolutely no doubt this is gonna be on my list of games of the year at the end of the year. I don't even know what else to say. I'm really, really enjoying it. You know, I'll finish the whole thing before I come up with the big final verdict, but at least at the moment, I love the heck out of this game. I love it. And like, don't be scared away by the Monster Hunter thing if you've never played a Monster Hunter. Any RPG fan is gonna enjoy it. You don't have to have any prior knowledge or anything. It's just a heck of a good RPG about people and monsters and stuff. So there you go, Monster Hunter Stories 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Are you excited for the game? Let me know in the comments. Have you played the game? And it's after this video came out. Come back to the video. Tell me in the comments. See you later. I am going to go and play more Monster Hunter Stories 2. Oh, I guess I should probably like edit this video for, okay, fine. I'll edit the video first. Then I'm gonna play Monster Hunter Stories 2.